And, of course, Gary's eyes are just about sealed shut, ladies and gentlemen. His new book is called The Autobiography.
Ventura stunned pundits and politicians alike this month when the former professional wrestler was elected governor of Minnesota on the Reform Party ticket. He beat two of his state's biggest political names with a sometimes raucous brand of in-your-face populism, and it's a pleasure to welcome Governor-elect Jesse Ventura to our show here at CBS. I'm really pleased that you would come here. This is not the main tent in town. I know you were on with Jay Leno tonight, but congratulations. When did you know on election night that this sucker was coming your way?
Well, it was funny because we had it at Canterbury Park, which is the horse racing track, which I thought was appropriate. That's where long shots could sometimes come in. And we were out there, and when the first results came in, the first 1% came in, it was just the way the polls had it. Humphrey had about 35, 36, Coleman was at about 32, and I was at 29. And then it got to 3%, and I had passed Coleman. And then at 5%, I actually took, I believe it was 120 or 140 vote lead over Humphrey. And we didn't look back from there. It kept building and building. When did I know?
When did the networks project that you were going to win this race?
They projected it. I had been out twice in front of the crowd, and they were doing, what do they call that stuff now with the young kids, where they pass each other on their heads?
I have no idea.
I don't either. They tell me what it's called again.
I'm too old for that.
Me too, Tom. I'm getting too old too. But they got a name for it, where they pick kids up and pass them around up there. Well, that was going on out there. So they told me I had to go soothe the natives. They said, you better get back out there. And I said, well, look, I don't want to go out there. I've been out there twice. I'm going to start repeating myself. And as we stood up to go out, they were at 60%, 58% had been counted, 40 or 42% still had to go. As I stood up, one of the TV sets in the private room where we were at, all of a sudden my name came up with the check mark.
Bingo.
They had projected me the winner. And then in a matter of about 10 seconds, the other two came up with it. Well, I still didn't believe it. I turned and the crowd cheered. Everyone went crazy. I calmed them. And I said, wait a minute. I said, these experts haven't been right yet. I said, how can they know? I said, there's 40% of the Minnesotans haven't been counted. I'm not going out there and making a fool of myself. If I walk out there like I won and 20% more go down the line and I'm in second, am I going to look like an idiot?
Look what happened to Dewey in 48.
Well, that's what I was reminded of. They told me they hadn't been wrong since 48, which was 50 years. But I had an ad guy who put together those unique ads. I don't know if you saw them.
Some of them we've seen on the news.
Okay. Sure. His name is Bill Hilsman, and Bill is a real quiet guy. He came up to me and he looked at me and he said, Jesse, he said, you trusted me with the ads, didn't you? And I said, sure, Bill. He said, then you have to trust me now. He said, you are the governor. And I said, but Bill, there's 40% out there yet. That's 4 out of 10 haven't been counted.
Details.
He said, they know. He said, they know you are the governor. And he said, trust me one more time. And so at that point, it kind of set in when I walked out and the crowd went crazy. It was at that point in time that I thought, my God, you are the governor.
Now that the euphoria of victory has passed by a week or 10 days.
It hasn't.
Oh, okay. and incidentally, I deliberately am not showing you as a wrestler tonight because I think enough people have done that, and you are, after all, the governor-elect of the 20th largest state in the union.
Thanks.
Has the sense of responsibility settled on your shoulders yet? I mean, you are now a responsible man.
Well, I've been a responsible man. I mean, I'm an ex-Navy SEAL. And there's a lot of responsibility in that life, too. You know, the press said to me, you know, can you handle this, the pressure? And I said, this isn't pressure. I said, pressure's jumping out of an airplane 34 times. Pressure's diving 200 feet under the water. Pressure is swimming at night with shark-infested waters. I said, that's what you do as a Navy SEAL on a regular basis. That's pressure. I said, this is responsibility. And I said, I've handled responsibility my whole life. Has it set in on me? Yes. Where it hit me, Tom, was the next morning when I had to drive over, walk up the steps of the Capitol and meet with Governor Arnie Carlson, the governor right now, who's, you know, who didn't seek re-election. And when I walked into his office, it was at that point in time that I realized just the magnitude of what I had done.
You know, there's that great scene in the movie that Robert Redford did, The Candidate, I believe it was called, where he wins the race for Senate, and he looks at his aides, he says, now what are we going to do?
Oh, you know, though, I went through that as mayor, because I was mayor of the 6th largest city from 91 to 95, and I went through that period the night I won that election.
6th largest city in Minnesota.
Minnesota, correct.
What's the name of that town?
Brooklyn Park.
Okay.
And I went through that then. When I won that, I turned to my wife, I went, oh my God, now we have to do this. You know, I mean, the campaigning was kind of fun. It's like competition. It's kind of war without guns. It's a chess game. And that's exhilarating to me. But then after you win, then it's, you know, the reality hits you that, oh my goodness, now I got to do this for 4 years. But I think it prepared me for it a little. Like I told the press too, I said, in Brooklyn Park, we dealt with millions. I said, now we're simply moving the decimal point over. Now it's billions, but basically the same. Brooklyn Park was about 12, our budget was probably 14 million a year. The state of Minnesota is now around, you know, 12 or 13 billion a year.
There are those who write in the press that when you were mayor of Brooklyn Park, the city was actually run by a city manager. I'm not trying to quibble with you here.
Oh, no, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's a weak mayor. That's what they call a weak mayor system.
Okay.
Where you're just one of 7 votes with 6 council members, and it's a part-time job. You have a city manager that's highly trained. He runs the city on a day-to-day basis,
right.
And you, by your votes, guide him on where you want the city to go, and he carries out that. But it happens the same way, though, even at the governor level. You have a chief of staff. You make the decision, but it's the chief of staff that will carry out your decision. He would be like the military. You're the commanding officer, and it's the XO that does the dirty work.
And when do you begin? When do you begin staffing your administration?
Well, we're in the process right now of transition, and Governor Carlson's been very good about it. When he inherited his governorship 8 years ago, they left him sitting there with a 1.8 billion deficit. Literally took off and left him sitting there with nothing.
No, when they leave quickly.
Oh, yeah. Well, he vowed that and I commend him for it, he vowed that when his transition came, he was not going to let that happen to the next governor because, like he said, the state of Minnesota is what we're all mostly concerned with here. That's the focus. And so he's been good, his staff, about going through the transition period. And I've been lucky, too, because I've got a chief of staff now for transition named Steve Bosacker, who is a genius. He set up the University of Minnesota when the President Mark Yudof came up from Texas to take over the University of Minnesota.
So the machinery is beginning to work even as we speak.
Oh, the machinery worked all day today while I was here in L.A., rest assured. I wouldn't be here if the machinery wasn't working.
Okay. We are chatting here with Jesse Ventura, the governor-elect of Minnesota. We'll continue with the governor-elect and you on the toll-free after this short break. There's Carrie on the toll-free in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Hi, Carrie, and welcome to CBS Late Night. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Carrie. How are you tonight?
Pretty good. So I wanted to ask you about your Champlain Park team and how they're doing and what's your prediction for Friday?
Well, we're doing great. We're playing in the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome Friday night.
This is the team that you
that I coach.
Yeah.
High school football. I'm in my 4th year, and I'm the conditioning coach. When I walk on the field, if I yell, "What is pain?" they answer, "Pain is weakness leaving our bodies." And if I say pain is good, they go extreme pain is extremely good. No, we're for the first time in the state finals, and we're going to play Cretin-Durham Hall, and a great football team, great tradition, but we feel confident we're hopefully to win this game and go on and play for the state title the following Friday. And I won't give up. They're doing great. We've had a good week of practice, and we're focused. We're ready to play football.
And after you're governor, will you continue this coaching assignment?
I would like to. I mean, next fall I would, because actually it was therapy, Tom. During the election or the campaigning, I would always block out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 to 6. I told them I'm not available. And Friday nights, I said, if you can find me a crowd of over 7,000, which I'll be in front of, I won't go to football. Well, they couldn't do that. And then I would always explain to the referees when I'd get there, don't hold it against my kids. I'm going to yell. I'm going to scream. I'm going to swear. I said, this is therapy. My doctor says I need to come here to get this out of me.
Yeah, okay.
And the refs would always go, don't worry, Coach. We won't hold it against them. And it really was. And I'm in my 4th year, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Carrie, I'm glad you called. By the way, who'd you vote for, Carrie?
Oh, Jesse.
Okay, thanks for calling, Carrie.
Do you know what I love about this? If everybody who says they voted for me, Tom, I would have won with 75%. Not doubting Carrie, but it's the truth. I've had more people come up to me. I thought, if all these people voted for me, how could it have been that close?
Well, as George McGovern said after he lost badly to Nixon, he said, if everybody who says they voted for me had, I would be the president.
That's right.
Carrie, I'm glad you called, and thanks for watching tonight. Okay, bye-bye now. You made a comment or a statement during the election. You cannot legislate against stupidity.
It's true.
I'd like you to amplify on that, because I think you touched a nerve when you said that. You cannot legislate against stupidity.
Well, too much today, Tom, of government, somebody does something stupid or there's stupid behavior, and right away government thinks they have to then make laws.
Step in there,
make a law to try to stop people from behaving stupid. And you can't do that. People are going to do stupid things. It's like I always use for an example in Minnesota. Springtime will come, the weather will go to 75 degrees for 5 days in a row, and you'll get somebody stupid on a snowmobile who will go out on the lake, and they'll go through and drown. And right away then the government will step in. We have to
got to find a way to
stop this from happening. Well, it's stupidity. You know what I call it? Nature's way of weeding out the stupid.
It might be a kinder way of saying to thin the herd.
Yeah, whatever.
Thin the herd. There's a comedian, I can't think of his name off, Blake Clark, who says, you know, if you can't figure out that you should not take an electric hairdryer in the bathtub with you, you deserve to be electrocuted.
That's right.
Thin the herd.
And the thing is, you can't legislate stupidity. People are going to do stupid things. They always have, they always will.
You were also against voters paying for baseball parks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, a lot of people in San Diego voted to spend $350 million.
And that's fine. If they want to put it on referendum, and if the majority of the people want to vote for it, we don't have that in Minnesota. We don't have a referendum in Minnesota, so it's got to come from the legislators. I won't support it because, I mean, Mike Piazza's getting what, $91 million for 7 years? How do I look in the face of a hard-working guy that makes maybe $30,000 a year, and I'm going to tell him I'm going to take some of his money and pay for him to have a place to do his job on a baseball field? I can't do that, and I come from pro sports.
You know, the fellow that follows us here, Dennis Prager, who is very, very popular in Los Angeles on talk radio, during the campaign was against San Diego coming up with public money to build a baseball field to make the owner richer. He said, why don't they take the $350 million and buy the team? And he wondered out loud on the radio, why can't a city buy a team? Really?
It's the rules.
Whose rules?
The rules of baseball and the rules of football. That came up during our campaign, and I was the only candidate that knew the answer. You can't do it. Green Bay did it because they got grandfathered into the league because they're owned publicly. But until the baseball and football change their rules, there is no public ownership allowed. The owners don't want that.
Of course they don't.
They don't want no public ownership.
No, but can you imagine, for example, if the city of Los Angeles had bought the Dodgers instead of Rupert Murdoch, and the revenue that would accrue to the coffers of Los Angeles from the operation of the LA Dodgers baseball team? Be awesome.
Sure. Sure, but until they change their rules within the league, can't happen.
You mentioned service with the Navy SEALs and in all the biographies that we've read about you since the election and during the campaign, they mentioned your service in Vietnam. Some people in the press question your, and they use the word evasiveness about service in Vietnam. You know, they don't say you didn't do it, but they say that you don't talk a lot about it,
sure.
and you don't like to dwell on it. Why is that?
Because that's personal. My father, I'll use him as an example. My father was a World War II veteran, and I lived with him for 39 years off and on and never had any idea until he passed away, and I actually saw his DD-214 that he had 7 bronze battle stars from World War II. And he never spoke of it, and I was his son. I mean, if he wouldn't, you know, and to me it's a personal thing. We all serve our country. I'm honorably discharged, and that's all anyone needs to know. End of story. You know, I'm proud to have served. You know, it's one of the highlights. It was a defining moment in my life being a Navy SEAL. I mean, anyone, we call it the teams, and we're a brotherhood. We don't join VFWs. That's another thing we don't do because we're unto ourselves. We're a very elite, small unit who simply, we believe in ourselves, and we never associated with the other military when we were in. Why would I do it when I'm out? You know, and that's just how it is. And,
how tough was your leader?
Terry Mother Moy, his scariest man I ever knew in my life. Hi, Mother. He's probably out there looking tonight. I think he's 56 years old, and I saw him at a reunion, a SEAL reunion, and the first thing I did was I went up and dropped and gave him 20 push-ups. And him, in typical Moy style, stuck his foot in the middle of my back and made me really work for about the last 5 or 6. But those guys were but they had a job to do, and they did it well. They knew what they were preparing you for, of being the most elite, what I consider, fighting man we have. Because what makes us uniquely different from the other special forces is that we will always eventually go back to the water. That's where we're most comfortable. Mm-hmm. We're frogmen, and when we feel if we get in the water, we're in our top element there.
I read that you don't have an awful lot of schooling. You have a great vocabulary. Where did you get your vocabulary, your command of the language? Well, you just said, different from. Most people say different than, and it tips it right away that they don't know English very well. I mean, your English is superb.
You're right. I'm a combination of Fargo, because I'm a born and raised Minnesotan, and we have our own kind of language up there in Minnesota, something you can't learn. You have to be born there. I don't know, to me, talking is simply, if the other person understands you, then you've done a good job, and you leave it at that.
They understood you, kid.
Yeah, they did.
Let me take a fast break. We'll continue with Jesse Ventura, the governor-elect of Minnesota, for a few more minutes, then Dennis Prager, Mark on the toll-free in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Hi, Mark, you're on the air.
Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Congratulations, Jesse.
Hi, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. My question is, what puts you in a bad mood? What's a bad day for you?
What puts me in a bad mood? What's a bad day for me? Reporters these days. They can put me in a bad mood real quick. I mean, some of them get so obnoxious at times, and they really, truly ask you some questions that you want to look at them and go, how do they ask you what someone else is thinking. Well, how do I know what go ask them.
I love the ones who say, are you thinking about running for the White House? I mean, good God, you haven't even been governor of Minnesota yet.
Very good. Very good. And I'm getting that already. Are you going to run for president? I haven't even been sworn in yet. How would I run for president? And so I think the reporters put me in a bad mood these days. Or they can.
Some of them.
Some of them.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mark, I'm glad you called, and thanks for watching us tonight, young man.
I want to ask you something.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Good night. Yeah, go ahead.
How did you feel? I thought Dan Aykroyd used to do you great.
Yes, he did.
On Saturday Night Live.
Yes, he did.
I used to love that whenever I'd watch Saturday Night Live. Oh, no, I really did.
Let me ask you something. Like, when you were in the ring, you were pretty good with the mouth,
Oh, yeah.
In fact, sometimes better with the mouth than with the hands, right?
Yeah.
Where'd you get all that mouth stuff? How'd you learn all that?
I think my dad.
Yeah?
Yeah, he was very political. He was at the dinner table. He had his own unique name for President Richard Nixon.
Is that right?
Yeah, he called him the tailless rat.
Well,
that was my dad, but God bless him. He's up there looking down today.
What would he have said had he been with you at campaign headquarters on election night? Huh?
No telling. Yeah. No telling what he'd have said. I know he'd have been proud. He would never believe it. Because he was a city laborer, city street department. My mom was a nurse. My mom also was a World War II vet. She was a nurse in North Africa. And my brother's a Vietnam vet. Everyone in our family served in the military, so I'm very proud of that.
What does your family think of this? Your wife, your children?
Well, when you've dyed your hair multicolored and wore 6 earrings and wore feathered boas and a ring, you've done movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I suppose at this point in time nothing truly surprises them anymore. That's just Dad doing what he's going to do next. But I think they're happy, and they're proud, and I'm proud of them because I've put them through a lot. People don't realize the stress of a campaign on the family. And they also don't realize that when all of this is over, it's your family you have to go back to. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep that in perspective.
And how about you as Jesse Ventura, the wrestler? You were always a bad guy.
Yes.
Why did you select bad guy rather than
creativity?
Good? Yeah?
Oh, yeah, because, the good guy, that's mom, apple pie. You can't be creative. A bad guy, you can insult everyone. It's expected of you. It was great. And then yet when you get out in the real world, you'll find most of your bad guys are the nicer guys because they're so used to being abused that when they do meet someone who's nice to them, they go overboard to be nice back. But creativity of it. Oh, yeah. Nobody realizes what it's like, Tom, to have 19,000 people say in the palm of your hand on your every move. I remember the first time I sold out my hometown of St. Paul, the Civic Center. Of course, they billed me from San Diego. They never told them that I was from there. Right. And as I went to the ring, 19,000 people were chanting in unison, "Jesse sucks." Jesse sucks. You know, and what better compliment? I mean, I did my job.
Did a reporter ever ask you if wrestling was a fake?
I don't like the term fake.
I understand
I
that.
dislike that. And I'll tell you why. I go to Timberwolf basketball games, and halftime they'll bring someone out on a trampoline, and the guy will bounce up and down and do all these flips and land on a tramp, and he's called an artist. I do the same flips, go over the top and land on the cement floor, and I'm called a fake. Why doesn't he miss that tramp once? And we'll find out what kind of artist he really is. You know, and so I
got you going, don't I? Huh?
Yeah, but that, you know,
well, you know, I told you, I used to work at a station in Georgia where they had the wrestling show.
Sure.
They would always ask that question.
Yeah.
And they would say, well, if you think it's not legit, come on in the ring with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you know what the key is there? You wait for that idiot to come in because he's got to lead with his head. To get in through the ropes, what's the only way you're going to get in? Lead with your head.
Anyway, it's a long way from doorman at the Rusty Nail Cafe and Bar. Huh?
Yeah.
Met your wife there?
Met my wife there. I was working there while I was training to be a pro wrestler. I'd already bleached my hair blonde. And she walked in the door, and our eyes met, and that was it. And I might add, I was at college then, going on the GI Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 4.0 grade point average till I met her. There went the grade point average. I think I ended with a 3.3. You know,
Thank you so much for making us part of your tour here in California.
Absolutely.
Good luck to you as governor of Minnesota.
Thank you.
Please do not become a politician, one of them. And
I won't.
And success to you as governor of Minnesota.
Thank you. I'd like to come back again, maybe a year from now, and we'll talk again.
Well, a year from now, I won't be here.
You won't?
No, I'll be somewhere else. But wherever I am, you'll come, okay?
All right.
All right, sir.
Thanks.
Jesse Ventura, governor-elect of Minnesota. He'll take office on January 4th. Next from...